Hello, family, friends, and fans. I'm Fletcher Roden, and this is Fletch Me Anything. Today on Fletch Me Anything, my new book, Dr. Mom and Other Works of Short Fiction. How it happened, why it happened, and what you can do about it. Well, you may be interested in those things, and you may be interested to know what this is that you're looking at. It's Fletch Me Anything. It's a daily show that ran for about 3 years on this very YouTube channel, wherein I talked about anything I wanted to talk about. It's one of the reasons I called it Fletch Me Anything. Another is that I was and remain Fletch. I'm Fletcher Roden, if you don't know me. I'm a writer mostly. I got a lot of books under my own name and others in the various formats, paperback and Kindle and audiobook format. I was a ghostwriter for about 10 years. I'm a recording artist with lots of music you can download all over the internet. If you like to download your favorite music, you can download mine. You can learn more about me at my website, FletcherRoden.com. That's where you'll find links to my artist page at Spotify or my authors page at Amazon. I'm popping a link down below for Dr. Mom. At my website, though, you can also find free music that's available there and nowhere else. And links to this show and to the reruns that are still available. There's also other playlists on this YouTube channel, including my show, Quotes and Quips, which is running this year, 2024, every Monday at noon, right on this YouTube channel. And I had one last year on a different YouTube channel called Tracking the Lone Wolf, also under my name, but a different channel. I'm not even sure how that works. But some things you just got to go along with. Choose your battles, right, folks? Okay. So the battle for today is to talk about, well, yeah, I'm back with Fletch Me Anything. It's only for a week. I did do this show for almost 3 years right here on this YouTube channel. Stopped it about a year and a half ago-ish. Came back with a new show, Quotes and Quips. And this was just, I ran out of anything. I did a lot of looking back episodes until my neck hurt from looking back. I sang every song that I knew. I told every joke that I knew. I shared everything I had. But I'm back this week, mostly to talk about this new book, Dr. Mom, My Robot Assistant Agrees. The thing is, on my last, when I did my final, I did this, I ended the show. And Fletch Me Anything I did. And I did it kind of abruptly. And some people were kind of shocked by it. Not a lot of people. It didn't, didn't cause ripples that, damaged the concrete in Hong Kong. But some people were like, "What? Wait, whoa, hey, I like this. What about this? What about that? What about this?" So, and when I did my sign off, I'd mentioned that I wasn't going to write any more books, and I had, I'd retired from that, and more or less that was true. I certainly meant it at the time. I had released my book, Tracking the Lone Wolf. That was my last nonfiction book, for sure. And it's a cohesive book. That book meant a lot to me. And it had so much of what I wanted to say. And it just seemed like a good time to not do that anymore. I feel like I'd written a lot of books, contributed a lot of books to the human soup that we all swim in, whatever that means. Most of us don't swim in soup. I guess we drink it, but I don't know. Let's just call it the digital watering hole of life. So I was peeing into the watering hole like everybody else. And I wasn't going to do it anymore because I figured, well, I filled up the watering hole my share. Let the crocs have. Drink it up, boys. I'm out. And that was fine. But what happened is, and it's fine. It's all fine. But what happened is, because, all right, first of all, I did retire from ghostwriting. I said I was going to retire from writing, and my ghostwriting career is over. 10 years. I won't say how much money I made, but it's actually pretty respectable. Great experience. Saved my life. Loved being a writer, ghostwriter. I think I I think I was at the top of that hill for a while. But the hill's eroded, and the pay is just not there. So the pay isn't there to sustain the kind of excellence that I strive toward. So that part is done. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm retired as far as that goes. And I wasn't going to put out any more books either. I didn't retire from music, although I did retire from performing, and I don't think I'll ever perform again. Seriously, I'll do little things. I'll do karaoke. I'll strum a ukulele in a park, but I don't see myself performing as a performer. But I do have music. I have a new album coming out in January, and then I got a release the following November, which is an archival release, and then I got something new in January of 27. So there's new music coming out, but I'm not going to be like recording it all the time. I kind of recorded these things already, and they're already done. Um, so it was just going to be a nice, relaxing time of doing very, very little for me, and that's fine. But there was some interest in one of my properties uh, by a company I shall allow to remain nameless. And at this time, at the time of this recording of this webisode, I still don't know how that interest is going to go. But around late May, I was contacted with interest in some of my projects. And I'd noticed that on a hard drive, you know how you go through boxes and you find old hard drives, you're like, oh, what's on this? You plug it in, you see what's there. And I remembered seeing some things I had forgotten about, some screenplays, which they weren't in final, weren't written with final draft, which a lot of you will recognize that. It was some other cheap freebie one night, which is the only thing I could afford at the time. It was scripts I'd written years ago. And so you know, I had them on PDF, so I could retype them as something else on from the PDFs, public document format or portable document format. So I suddenly found myself with like three viable screenplays, and because someone else had said, well, we want to see a script of this. And I said, well, I think I can find it. Let me find it. And I'd seen it on a hard drive. So in retrieving that PDF, which I sent right to the company, I found myself with these other things, which I just kind of cast off. I've thrown away so many things, so many stories and things for a variety of reasons, many more than I've published. You think I've published a lot of things. You should see the mountain of stuff I've thrown out. And these were among them. And so I was looking at them. I was like, oh, I remember that one. That was pretty good. And that one was pretty good too, So I thought, you know what? I've got a pocket of time. I'm in a, I'm in a, I'm not working as a ghostwriter anymore. So I kind of have my own personal time. And I had a month and I thought, well, I'm going to write these things one of them would make a good mom-com novel. And then there was a novella and a novelette, and one of them is a 10-minute stage play. So I didn't really have to do much there. But these other things, I had to write them from screenplay format into, prose, easy to do. So I went ahead and did that. I mean, I had a month. I don't know what you guys all do with a month if you have a month with nothing to do. Most people have jobs. I was out of work. If they don't have jobs, they've got friends or family or whatever. I had a month. So I decided, well, why not? Dr. Mom, which is the novel that is the anchor of this new release. It is called Dr. Mom and other works of short fiction. Dr. Mom is a novel, but it's a short novel, clocking in around 50, I think, 45,000 words. Short. It's written from a screenplay that was it's a mom-com. A few years ago, I had a book called Sunrise in Salinas, which I wrote basically to be adapted into a movie. But I wrote it it's sort of a woman of a certain age has a romantic excursion, like Stella gets her groove back. It's one of those kinds of books. So I wrote one that was Sandra Bullock gets her groove back in Ecuador. because I was in Ecuador. And Sunrise in Salinas, that was called. That's out there floating around somewhere. Anyway, I called it a mom-com because it's like a rom-com, which means romantic comedy. But, the characters are not 26, they're 46 or 52, mom-com. And so Sunrise in Salinas was one of these. And it has some sex in it. Like How Stella Got Her Groove Back, the novel has sexy sex in it, erotica, lovemaking, which is in book writing they have closed door romance and open door romance. And I'll bet you already know what that is. But for those of you who don't, a closed door romance, they kiss, they go to the bedroom, they close the door, and the chapter ends. The next morning they wake up. The next chapter, first thing, the sun streams in through the bedroom window. The showers. So that's a closed door romance. An open door romance is they kiss and walk into the bedroom, and then there's another chapter. And the door is wide open. Sometimes it's so wide open, I don't even want to go there. But in Sunrise in Salinas, it's open. It's an open door romance, like a lot of these books are. So anyway, I was looking at Dr. Mom. Dr. Mom was a screenplay I'd written. What all these things had in common, all these short fiction pieces, were that they were older. I'd written them in the early aughts. So, after 9/11, and 2005, 2004, around there. I was living in Los Feliz Village. Lou Weitzman was my agent. I was trying to get something that would sell. And so one of these things was called Dr. Mom. And I had a friend, I still have a friend, very dear friend, Eva James, Marion Galbraith is her name. And she performed as Eva James, and I was her guitar player and, sort of her aide de camp musically for the Eva James band. We used to play every weekend, Saturday night at the Kibitz Room. I think it was Saturday night, wasn't it? It was very fun. Maybe it was every Sunday night at the Kibitz Room. Every Sunday night. Anyway, so Eva had gone to medical school, but had dropped out, as a lot of people do. And I thought, you should go back. And she's like, no, it's so hard, and all the odds are against me. And I thought, well, that'd make a good movie. That'd make a good script. So I wrote it up as a mom-com, gave it to my agent. He liked it, actually. And we liked it for Goldie Hawn and her daughter, who they would have been about the right age, I think. Maybe Goldie Hawn wasn't quite young enough. She might have been about 15 years off the target. But Goldie Hawn did read it. It did get as far as Goldie Hawn. And I've been turned down by some pretty impressive people. Drew Barrymore turned me down. Ridley Scott turned me down. Goldie Hawn turned me down. So Dr. Mom kind of languished. It was cute. It's about an empty nester who's about 50, who's still attractive and vital and feels useless after her daughter gets married. She decides to go back to medical school. And it raises a little ruckus, and she has a love affair, and it's fun and cool and great, So I decided I'm going to write this as a novel. So I wrote it, and I threw in some sex scenes, which weren't in the original, but she did have a love affair in the original, but, open door. And so there it is. Not a great magic trick. A lot of the research has been done. I mean, how often do you get an outline for a novel the outline is 110 pages? All the research, I remember researching this thing for 6 months. I gave it to Lou. Lou handed it out to Goldie Hawn. So I had to make sure the research was done. And there's a lot of pathos in it and a lot of comedy in it. And I liked it anyway. And I find that it makes a lovely book. Another installation of this strange little book. This is a book it's like a collection of things. And also one of these lost works that I recovered was called Laws of Motion. Laws of Motion. And it would have made a good indie film. It was a screenplay that was written to be shot in and around locations of Los Feliz Village. very few locations, mostly just the street in front of an apartment building and a few interior shots. And it would have made a good stage play. I remember thinking at the time it would have been a good stage play. I was doing stage plays then. Um, so it's probably after Last Tango with Marlon. And I thought this might have been a good stage play, and it still might. But now, at this point, I was like, well, maybe this could be a novella. You know, it's sort of a slow burn thing. It's about a guy who's just a nameless, droney guy who's not anybody special. No one you'd know, no one you'd think of, no one you'd look twice at. Just a fella who's taking his morning walk before work, and he just stops walking and remains stock still, standing in front of an apartment building that he doesn't live in. Just happened to be the apartment building that was there when he stopped walking. And and a whole thing gathers around him, and he becomes an object of worship and of derision, and a catalyst for everybody and their agenda and stuff like that. It's comparable to School Crossing, a book I wrote later in this kind of a thing, and it's a really good slow burn. And I thought, well, this will make a good novella, so I went ahead and wrote it, and it's an open door. It's got one open door scene. Why not? And it's really good. It really, I think, addresses a lot of the. It was written in the post 9/11 world, so it sort of addresses that sense of hopelessness and aimlessness. And even though we had a real focus on patriotism at the time, there was also a sense of we're in the morass now. You know, we're not out of reach. We're not out of reach of anything. And there's a laws of motion is definitely about depression and a sense of hopelessness. And I think it's as vital today as it was then, even more so, because of the epoch in which we live is one of increasingly dire peril and gathering hopelessness and fear. So I mean, I feel like it touches the pulse, you know? I think he's got his finger on the pulse. And I wrote it like 20 years ago. So that's cool. Enjoyed writing it. Now it's a novella. The other one was called In Law, which the use of the word law is totally coincidental. In Law started as a half-hour short film. Robbie Rist and I were going to make a movie. This was my idea, where we each do a half hour. We get 3 half-hour movies and put them together and make a movie, a trilogy, kind of a thing. Uh, so I wrote one, and they were all supposed to be easy to shoot, designed to be shootable, and editable, and cheap and easy. And I wrote mine, which is called In Law, and I wrote his, which was his idea. It was called California Hold'em. That was my title, great title. And then there was a third one that I was going to write. There was Robbie was going to star in it, but I hadn't written it because it was going to be hard to write. It was going to be action on the streets of LA, and it was going to be laborious to write. So I put that one off until I was convinced that the actual project was going to go through, which it did not. So Robbie got his 30-minute script of California Hold'em. I don't know what happened to it. I have mine of In Law. And I was looking at it on this hard drive, and I thought, well, this might make a short story, which actually it's a novelette, which is, if you don't know what that is, and I didn't either, it's too short to be a novella, but too long to be a short story. Novelette. So this is another slow burn drama. It was all these things were meant to be shot on the cheap, written to be shot in on location in rooms and apartments. Robbie's was going to be shot in his house. Mine was going to be shot in the apartment of one of the actors. It was written that way. So mine all takes place in an apartment. Uh, it's a very intense little piece. I don't want to say too much about it, but it's a slow burn drama that's it's kind of a horror piece, really. It's sort of a Stephen King kind of a thing, maybe ish. Not really a huge Stephen King fan, but it's that. It's a really intense thing. This man, it's a two-hander. It's an old woman and her son-in-law, and he comes to take her to lunch, but she's afraid he's going to drag her to the nut house. So that's what it is. And it was going to be about a half hour long, and it would have been cool, but the cast I had were not going to be manageable. And Robbie, I'm not blame Robbie, but it just didn't happen. Things don't happen, you know. A lot of times you get starry-eyed about a project, it just doesn't come together. But I did have the script. And I thought, well, this might be cool. So I wrote that, and that's cool too. Then the other thing, the stage play that I didn't really have to rewrite at all. I just had to reformat it, and I didn't even have to do that because it's in London format, not New York. With the name, I guess it'd be, let's see, the way you're watching it is the name on the left margin, Fletcher in caps, colon, and then the dialogue. You know, Fletcher's imaginary friend, and then the dialogue, like that. So it was easy to format that. Um, and that's basically about a Roman legion who have to kill one out of their 10, which was it's called decimation. And if you don't know, to decimate something is not to wipe it out. To obliterate something is to wipe it out. To obliterate is to wipe it out. Decimation meant specifically killing 1 out of 10. Deci is 10. So the way this would work is if anybody in the Legion of 10 made a mistake, he wouldn't be punished. One name would be drawn at random from the Legion of 10, not the Legion, but I think it's a Legion of 10, man, a cadre of 10. One of those 10 is chosen at random to be executed by the other 9, even if it's not the guy who committed the act. And that was a Roman form of military discipline and punishment. And it was designed so that everybody was responsible to everybody else. Because my mistake could get you killed. Rome, you know. So I wrote this thing 10 minutes long called decimation. If you're going to decimate something, you're only destroying 1 out of 10 of it, 1/10. If you're going to obliterate something, then you're destroying it outright. Please don't mistake the one for the other. It annoys the holy. It's just, honestly, not all words are the same. Just because they're several syllables long doesn't make them all interchangeable. So, decimation is the 4th piece. And then, of course, there's lots of excerpts. Excerpts from all my books, almost. Tons of excerpts. This book is overloaded, like all of my Blue Gesto books, overloaded with excerpts. Not only from me, but other Blue Gesto Press authors too. So, that is the rundown of my new book, Dr. Mom and Other Works of Short Fiction. Would I call it one of my necessary books? I think I would. You know, Dr. Mom got as far as any of my scripts did in Hollywood. And it's cute. It holds up. And this other thing, Laws of Motion, that could be like the great American novella for 2020s. Honestly, with the way things are right now, I wouldn't be surprised if people started reading that novella and then just stopped wherever they were, just like in the novella, and we get a whole phenomena of people just stopping and standing in protest, a silent, peaceable protest against the dizzying chaos that the world has become, and our seeming helplessness to stand against it. What can one man do? Anyway, this is the new fiction. This is Dr. Mom. After this, the only reason I wrote these things is because I found them as screenplays. And I found them because there's interest in my work. So no reason not to have a new book now. I mean, there are companies sniffing around my work, you know. Not only one book, the title I won't give away. It's one of my stalwarts, though. But another one is attracting interest. So can't hurt to have a new book out. And since my last one was a mom-com, my last novel, I think this following it up with another mom-com is acceptable. I don't see doing it again though, because I just happen to have a month's worth of time. I just happen to have a little heat under me. I just happen to have these stories that were all in a time period and all sort of comparable and all went together. It just sort of happened. I wasn't planning it, and I didn't expect it. But the stars aligned for Dr. Mom and other works of short fiction. So I don't expect the stars to align again. I will write, but I need to get paid. So unless I'm getting paid up front, which I did not for Dr. Mom or many other things, then I'm not writing a word. But if I will get paid, I will write. But for things like, my own novels, which I publish, Blue Gesto Press is my company. So Dr. Mom may be the swan song of my fiction. I don't see myself writing another nonfiction book for sure, because uh, Tracking the Lone Wolf was almost an autobiography, in addition to being a veritable guidebook for life for everybody under every circumstance. that's a book. That's a book that everybody should everybody should read, frankly. Not because I wrote it, but because the information in it, which I did not originate, much of it I just collected, is just so valuable. Everybody has to know this stuff. Not everybody has to read Dr. Mom, but it's cute, and a lot of people might like it. So check it out, won't you? Also, check out more of these Fletch Me Anything webisodes. It's this week only, a special week for Fletch Me Anything. Also, don't forget I've got Quadrilogy, a 4-record set that I released in January. That was half of those songs are from my college years, and half were newly written. And I recorded it all fresh in December and released it in January. 4 records: pop, rock, blues, and jazz. And that's cool. You can check those out right now. And stay tuned for a new record coming in January. And tomorrow I'll be back with another Fletch Me Anything by popular demand. Look forward to an analysis, a looking back episode, a webisode, I should say, by popular demand of one of my family, friends, and fans, and other fun stuff. So tune in. Thanks for watching this time. Until next time. Bye, Mary.